Hi and welcome to this tutorial, and we're looking at professional retouching using Adobe Photoshop, and we're concentrating today on professional black and white conversion. Now, what do I mean by professional black and white conversion? Well, basically it's a workflow that's easy to use but looks professionally stunning, obviously. And it's also being able to get back into an image and making minor adjustments, and that's really important. And let's say a customer submitted the picture and he says, hey, now I think that would be better in colour. Or I really think the shadows should be a bit darker, or would like it to be less sharp. Now, if you've actually completed a black and white conversion, and you can't go back and edit those individual things, obviously you're more or less starting again. You may be able to sharpen it, but you couldn't unsharpen it very successfully anyway. You couldn't get back the colour. So it's working to a method in a professional way, and also using a different workflow that many would probably never think of for black and white photography. So a different method of producing the black and white image. But this method is something quite new, and it's a technique that I learned from a top professional retoucher called Victor Fiesch, we'll have a quick look at his website. Just bring that up. Here we go. So he has a website called Guild Studios, and he's basically a professional retoucher, very skilled man. You can see his work. It's very professional. He's created a lot of work for magazines and whatnot, and working with a lot of portrait type pictures. You see Kevin Durant, lots of different famous people. And if we just look at this one, this is a print magazine. Although we've got a colour picture there, some of the work that he done for this is in black and white, and you can see it's quite a nice natural conversion. And also, if you look at this, let's just find one where it's probably more. Probably this one. Where are we? It's not completely black and white. It's got a very slight tone to it, slight warming tone. That's another technique that he uses that I'll show you how to do that. So to the eye, when you look at it, yeah, it's black and white, but sometimes black and white can look really harsh, and it's just a way of slightly warming a black and white photo up. It works great with, particularly with portrait images. So you can see he's used that on a couple. It's probably see more so on this image where it's slightly warmed up. So it's not, see, it's still black and white, but it's just using a technique just to give it a little bit of warmth and not be so cold and harsh. Okay, you don't need that in every image, obviously, and probably not the image that we will work on, but we'll just close this and get back to our image that we're going to work on. So this is the image that I'm going to work on, and the first thing that we're going to do is to look at the layers. So there I have got just the one background layer. Now straight away I'm going to show you the technique of actually converting this the way that Victor uses, and it's really quick and simple. And we go to Layer, New Layer. And what we do with this is on the colour mode, so on the mode there for the layer mode, sorry, we change this. It can be two things, two different ones, but it can either be colour or saturation. We're going to use colour. We will have a look at saturation later. I've not actually used saturation myself. I usually use colour, but we'll go for colour. And then we click on OK. Now that does absolutely nothing. What we need to do with this is to fill the layer with a solid colour, and that colour has to be black or white. Doesn't matter which, but it's got to be black or white. It's no good using red or any other colour, because then it basically isn't a black and white image. So the default colours in Photoshop are black and white, so I'm just making sure that you can click on the default colours there, you can switch them around, or it doesn't really matter whether you use black or white, both will work. And then we use the paint bucket tool and we click, and there is straight away, and that is the most natural way. It doesn't affect anything within the picture as such. It just simply makes it black and white. And no, it doesn't look stunning at the moment. It will do. And basically, if we look back at the layers, we've got the one layer there. We'll be working underneath this layer and adding other things to make it look more dramatic. So if we look at the picture, basically we can darken areas, we can bring out a bit of light in areas. So that is usually dodge and burn. Now if you dodge and burn an image, and you could actually dodge and burn on here, it would still be black and white. We're working on the colour image below that, so the colour image is still there, and that's what I say, that is non-destructive. We haven't changed it to black and white, and we're stuck with black and white. If the client says, okay, there's the finished image, I would just click there and save that image and say, okay, there's your colour version. So anything we do below this layer, and I'm just going to rename that, so we'll call that black and white just to stop any confusion. So that's the one that we've actually used, and that's just a colour mode. And that can be changed any time. You see I've got colour there for the mode. If we click saturation, you see basically that does the same thing. So it can be either of those, saturation or colour. Both will give you the same effect. Okay, so now we need to make sure that we're below the top layer. So I'll click on the background layer. And now what we're going to do is to create an adjustment layer. And this is the equivalent of dodging and burning. Now, for those who know, dodge is to lighten an area of the image. To burn an image is to make it darker. And it comes back from the days of the darkroom, where they used to actually use a tool to stop the light getting to certain parts of the image, or putting more light on one area and masking out the rest so that it become lighter. So that basically it was a darkroom little play there. And we have got dodge and burn tools within Photoshop, but there's a better way of doing that, and that's by using the adjustment layer. Okay, so the adjustment layer we're going to use is curves. Now for this first one, this is the one we're going to use to darken the areas of the image we want, and that will basically be the sky. So if I drag this down from the middle, more or less, I'm going to get that dramatic look I want in the sky. I'm ignoring the rest of the image. Okay, so that's roughly what I'm going to want on that. So I'll just hide that. Also, I'm going to go back to the layers now. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to rename it, double click in there and type in burn. Or if you want, darken. And I'm going to hide this layer now by clicking the eye, because I want to see the original image below. And I'm going to do exactly the same again. So I'm going to go to adjustments. I'm going to use the curves layer. And this time what I'm going to do, probably I don't need to lighten too much of this image, but I want to see a little bit more inside the tunnels, inside this area, on the walls and the bottom of the tunnels there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this upwards. It doesn't matter if I go just a little bit too much on this, because I can always adjust the layer after, and I'll show you that later on, what I mean by that. Okay, so that's roughly how I want that. Now, obviously, if we look at the layers again, and we look at the layers that we've got on there, that one, I'm going to change that to dodge. So this will be the one that we use to lighten the image. You could call it lighten and darken if you want, it doesn't really matter. Okay, but now what we want to do is to hide. I'm going to put both the layers on there, they'll cancel each other out basically. So what I want to do with this one is I want to change the mask to black, so therefore it's not active. You can see through it, it's transparent. And the easiest way to do that is to hold down Command and I, and then click on the burn one and do the same again. Now that's on a Mac, by the way, so sorry, on a PC or a Mac, Command I, or you can go to Image, Adjustments and Invert. Now if I do that now, it'll turn it back to white, but that's the other way you can do that. But you must click on the mask, so on the mask area there. So Command I, if I do it again, I'll bring it back on. Command I again, we'll take it off. Now basically what we want to do is we'll work on this first, lightening the areas that we want, which basically will be inside the tunnel there. And I'm going to click and select a brush. So I want a soft edge brush. You probably know how to resize now using the keyboard from viewing the other videos, but it's the parenthesis brackets to the left of the enter key on the keyboard. And we need to change the colour to white. So we're painting the opposite to the colour on the mask. So this will reveal what's on this layer. So if I click, we got the opacity on 100. I would probably, in most cases, take that down a little bit, but this is not too bad. I'm working on this, and I'm just painting in these really dark areas to bring a bit of detail back. Now the reason I say I'm okay on 100, if that's too much, I can always bring it back down by changing the opacity of the layer. And if there's any areas that I've gone over that I shouldn't have, okay, it's just a little bit on the edge there, I can change back to a black brush and just paint back over that to take it out. There we go. So now if I hide that layer, you can see we brought that detail back in. And if it was too much, I could go to the opacity of the layer and drag that down to whatever extent we wanted. Okay, I'm going to leave it all the way up for now. I might alter that at the end, but that'll do me for now. That looks quite good. Okay, now darkening the image. Basically the sky. So what I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to use a different technique. If we look at the image, the main light areas on the image is just basically the sky. So I'm going to make a selection of the sky in this case. So I'm going to use there's different ways of doing this, lots of different ways. Some better than this actually, but this should work. So I'm going to use the quick selection tool, make the brush larger and drag across the sky area there, which is basically got most of the image where I want. And I'm just going to I think I'll include the rails as well, to be honest, so I'm just going to click along here because I think the rails could also be darkened. That's not looking too bad now. There's a couple of areas down here. If I click on the minus, I'll just take those areas out. That's looking okay. You could do it lots of other ways, but I think that'll do us for this. We can easily edit that later, and that's the nice thing about this. Everything we do, we can edit. So if I go back to the layers, and basically what I'm going to do is I want that to be white. So I'm going to go back to white, and I'm not going to fill it with white. What I'm going to do is to paint it in with a brush. I'm going to take the opacity down a little bit so I can get some areas. So let's go down to about 25%, 27, that'll do. And I'm just going to paint, go over the sky. And I've still got that selection there. Let's just hide this for a minute. So that selection is stopping me from going over the edge and painting on areas where I don't want to go. And when I'm doing this, sometimes I prefer going slightly over what I want, and then I can always change the opacity and get back, make it lighter that way rather than doing it the other way, because it's a very quick method of actually changing what you want. There we go. So let's get rid of the selection now. Select, deselect. You can see that's looking fine. So I've now got that dramatic sky. We'll look back at the layers. And again, everything, we've got total control. Like I say, if you wasn't happy with that, you could always take the opacity down a little. I'm actually going to make it darker than this anyway, so using another tool. Okay, so that's our basic thing. So basically anything that you do that is below this layer, so below the black layer, if I hide that, you see you've still got the colour photo there, and you've got quite a nice colour photo there. And I'll say if your client says, well, I don't like the black and white, or, you know, if you save this as a PSD file, all you've got to do is open it up, hide that layer, save it as a TIFF or JPEG, whatever they want, and straight away you've not got to go in all those different areas. Also, if it says, well, the sky's a bit dark, you can go to the burnt area, and we can change the opacity on that. So is that better? Is that better? Is that better? You got full control. And you can resave that. So working in a much more professional way, you can edit any part. Okay, now I was talking about toning the picture a little bit to add a little bit of warmth to it. Now you do this very carefully, and the way to do that is we need to be above the black and white layer now, because if we try and tone below that, obviously it's going to change it to black and white. So again, we use an adjustment layer. And we use the photo filter, and you see that comes up at 25%, and I'm going to leave it at 25%. That is actually a little bit too much, but there is a way very easily, by going back to the layers again, we can adjust the opacity of that, and it's just, you just want a little bit. May not even do it in this case, but it's just showing you what you can just warm it that little bit. And it's usually nicer with portrait pictures of people, you know, where you've got portraits of people and you just want to add a tiny little bit of warmth just to take the coldness of a black and white image away. That looks okay actually. Okay, now one more thing, and again, whatever we do, like I say, that's below this layer, this top photo layer, let's just drag this a bit wider. Sorry, above the black and white layer. If we go below that, anything we do below that layer, it will still be black and white, obviously. And we'll have a look at another adjustment. This is one I quite like to make. So I'm going to use the colour lookup, and on the 3D look file I'm going to change that. I'm going to use light sunset. Now that adds a lot of drama, really lots of like darkness to the picture and makes it much more dramatic, too much so. But if again I go back to the layers, I'm losing my layers on this because this is a brand new installation and things aren't exactly in the same place as on my own Mac that I usually use. So I'm going to go to the colour lookup now, and there's some areas on there that I want to mask out completely. So I'm going to use a black brush, and then I'm going to go about 37%, something like that, and I'm just going to bring back. I'm deleting this area of the layer so it's not affecting it too much. I'm also going to lighten the whole effect slightly as well. Okay, so what I can do now is it's like painting with light using these layers. It's beautiful. You've got so much control. And I'm going to make a large brush here, and I'm going to bring some light back into this. So now we can really make it dramatic. We can paint light into the areas that we need. Put a bit of light along the bottom of this wall there, just a bit. And then I'm going to go back to the layers, and I'm just going to take the opacity of that down a little bit so it's not quite so overpowering. Okay, so there is more or less the completed image. If I was going to sharpen that at all, what I would go is go to the layers. I would duplicate this background layer. So I'm going to right click or control click, duplicate the layer. Remember, that's still actually, if we hide the photo filter now, sorry, the black and white filter, you see you've got a really dramatic colour photo there. So that's what's underneath that photo filter and the black and white filters at the top there. So this would be the layer. I'm on the background copy now, and this would be the layer where I do my sharpening. So I'm going to go to filter. I always use this one, sharpen, smart sharpen. I like this because you've got a lot more control over what you do. Now I'm going to select, it's on 1.4 pixels, which is a lot really, but that's a little bit. I'm going to take it down to 1. I do want it to be, I don't want it to be over the top, and also the sharpening around here is really too much. We'll take that out after. So I'm looking basically at the sharpening on the walls. That's probably the only reason I'm using this, not for the sky or any other part of the image. And again, once I've clicked on OK, it's now sharpening the layer. And again, because that's on a separate layer to the background image, I can take the opacity down. If the sharpening's too much, I can take it away. Which is what I'm saying. If a customer says, that's way too sharp, I don't like that, I want it softer, then all you've got to do is come back to this file and take the opacity of the sharpening down. If we zoom into 100%, you can see that if I sharpen that, probably going to just take a bit off, so it's like that. That's fine. So that's the image at 100%. Just got a little mark there in the sky. I think that's where a bird actually flew across us, taking a slow exposure. We just got a couple of little marks on that. So I'm just going to Now I have to make sure I'm on the correct layer for this. And first of all, I'll probably have to do it on both layers. Go back to this layer now and just don't want to. That's looking okay, that's fine. And the reason doing it on both layers is because we've got that opacity on this. If it was at 100% you wouldn't need to do that, but there we go. So there's our dramatic, professional looking black and white image, and the nice thing is we save that as a PSD file. Obviously you can save it as a JPEG or a TIFF image for your customer. You've got the original PSD file, and he says, well, I don't like that, I want it colour, I want a dramatic colour look. We can go back to the layers, we can hide this black and white. We could go to the colour lookup and we say, well, that's a bit too much, let's take that down a little bit, but we'll keep a bit of it just to, okay, you say, well, do you like that? Oh, I think the sky's a bit too dark. Okay, so we'll go to the burn and we'll lower the opacity of that. Is that better? Yeah, that looks okay, okay. It's a bit bright in the tunnel, okay, so we'll go to the dodge and we'll make that darker. So you can go back, you can change the image completely. We can take the colour lookup off completely if you wanted and get back to a more natural looking image. So complete control. All back on. Obviously we've adjusted some of the layers there. Full control over the image in every aspect, the sharpening, the bits that you've actually darkened, the bits you've lightened, so you dodged and burned, and also that colour lookup effect that you've put on there. Each one is completely customable. You can take parts out, you work on the layers and create a mask and take parts of it out and leave other parts on. Everything there you've got. Okay, hope that helped. And it's goodbye from me, Les Arnott.